Hey everyone, it is Abby Thurston here to do a virtual webinar for you guys. And I chose a topic that can be super overwhelming towards the end of the year. I'm going to talk about starting and ending our school year. And there are so many things that you can do, especially when you finish all your content. We have 8th grade science EOCs at our school. And so when testing starts at the beginning of May, we start to run out of things to do because we wrap up our content. And so I wanted to give you some ideas that I have used over the years for specifically for the end of the school year. And then as I started making this presentation, I was like, well, really a lot of these things you could do at the beginning of the school year too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that towards the end of my presentation today, but I hope that you walk away with some great ideas to use for the end of the school year if you're still in school, or maybe for next year, or even for beginning your school year. So main points, like always, I'm gonna give you a little pep talk because we made it. Then I'm going to talk about end of the year ideas that you can incorporate into your classroom. And then I'm going to talk about how to prepare for next year. So I saw this quote and thought it was amazing. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change by Stephen Hawking. Y'all, we have adapted all school year. We've really adapted since last March. And I just think that we need to pat ourselves on the back and remember, like, we completely adapted the way that we've taught. It has been super hard. I know that we can all agree on that. But hopefully this year you've walked away with new and exciting things that you can incorporate from here on out throughout your career in teaching. I just wanted to remind everybody, like, we did it, and it's a big deal that we did it. And I could say we did it 4 million times. I've been celebrating for the past month that we made it. So celebrate, go to dinner, get a cupcake, do something because you made it. I also, at the end of every school year, try really hard to reflect. I have a teacher planner that I buy every school year to prepare for the school. And always at the end, I will have like a reflection page that I just reflect on the year. Good things, bad things, hard things, strengths, weaknesses. It's really similar to your TEKS evaluations towards the end of the year when you're reevaluating yourself and seeing how you've grown. So reflecting is really good, and it also, as an educator, shows you what you need to do to improve. So I'm just gonna say that you should reflect, and then get ready for the new year because it's coming in hot. And we ended school 2 days ago, and I'm already ready to see my kids again. So I'm recharged already, which is crazy because it's only been 2 days. It's amazing what 2 days of break can do. Set some goals for the next school year. I highly encourage that. Think big, and then think obtainable. And then just remember that you can do anything. We just taught in a pandemic. Not many people can say that they've taught in a pandemic. So congratulations, we did it. I also loved this quote: be a reflective teacher. Honestly, look at what you do from time to time and evaluate it. The purpose of your role as a teacher. So I just think in order to become a better teacher, we should always be critically thinking about what we're doing in our classroom, and we should all want to get better. I don't ever want to be stuck in a rut teaching the same thing the same way for the next 14 years. I couldn't do it. I'd go crazy. So reflecting reminds you about your purpose as an educator and what you're doing in your classroom. Okay, so now I'm going to get into my end of year activities that I love to do. Y'all have heard me talk about book studies before. We typically do our book studies at the end of the year when we wrapped up all of our content. You can make a book study short, or you can drag it out as long as you want. And we did something really new this year, which I wanted to share with you about what we did for our book studies. So our advanced students, all advanced classes, did a literature circles, and we gave them choice. And I'm going to talk more about that in a second. And then in our grade level and co-taught classes, we read Hoot. And when I first was given this book to teach, I literally was like, man, this is so easy. This is like 4th grade book. Oh no, there's some heavy duty vocabulary in the book Hoot. And so that was really interesting. There's also a movie that goes along with Hoot. So we showed that at the end. We kind of like dangled that over our kids' heads, like, this is why we're reading this book, so that we get to watch a movie at the end. So that was really fun. And we did Hoot as an entire class. We didn't necessarily always do small groups. With a co-taught class and having students on all different levels, some higher level reading and some very low level reading, I have a co-teacher, and she and I would alternate reading pages. And then every once in a while, we would split the class in half, and half of us would go outside and half of us would stay inside because it's been beautiful in May. So that was really fun. We did like 3 little circles with our class one day, and the kids could read. It was just like a fun way to incorporate reading into the classroom. We had questions that went with every chapter to help guide us where we were going. There's all kinds of things that you can do with this book as well, and I'm going to talk more about Hoot in a few minutes. But now I want to talk about all of the books that we did for our literature circle in our dance classes. So we did almost like a book tasting. I know that a lot of you have probably seen that on Pinterest or on Instagram, and we came up with these books that were all had something to do with content standards that we taught. Some of them are real life, and then some of them are not real. And so that was interesting. And we really wanted our kids to buy into reading the last month of school. And we didn't read for a month. We read for probably 2.5 weeks. But we wanted their buy-in. And so the way that we did that was we allowed them to pick what they wanted to do. And we did it so that kids could just kind of like figure out what. So anyways, we gave them a synapse of the book and had them read all of these books that you see on my screen and let them just kind of decide what they were intrigued in. Were they wanting to go further into epidemics? Did they want to learn more about biomes or maybe ecology? All of these books have very cool, or genetics. They all have things that link to what we learn throughout the whole year. So we just thought this would be a great culminating activity. I thought for sure my kids were going to be like, I don't want to do this, Thurston. They actually loved it. It was really cool to see them just kind of engage with their peers and read a book that they actually really enjoyed because they picked the book. And we several days did like a coffee kind of vibe, coffee shop vibe, and had like that coffee music playing in the background. And the kids were so pumped about it. They looked forward to coming to class. They were excited about what they were reading. And then while they were reading, once again, we gave them questions so that they could have really good discussions about what they were learning. I just loved ending the year like this, and the kids enjoyed it because I won't say it was mindless because they were obviously learning, but it was an easy activity for them to do and not have to stress out about a test. They had plenty of testing going on because of milestones. We also give the MAP test in my school. So anyways, this is just a great idea. You should run with it and use it. These books are all great. We have them donated. If you can't decide on books that you want to do, I really encourage you to go to your librarian. He or she probably already has great books in mind that you could totally use. All you have to do is tell them the standards and they will find something. So, okay, so now I'm going to talk about some really great ideas that you can incorporate throughout the year or even at the end of the year. So giving your kids choice automatically gets their buy-in. So with Hoot, when we did that book study, we gave our students a choice board at the end of the reading, and not at the end of the reading, throughout the reading. And on Fridays or Mondays or whatever day of the week you want to, we had them pick one topic to do within the choice board. And there were all kinds of activities, like create a poster to encourage protection of wildlife, just all kinds of things. And so that was just an example I'm thinking of off the top of my head. But choice boards are great because it allows your students to figure out what they want to do, and they get to pick what they want to do. You can create a choice board so easily. I'm going to show you one in a second. So I'm going to talk more about choice boards in a minute. At the end of the year, you could also preview next year's standards. Ask your 8th grade teachers for ideas. What are some things that they need to know before they get to 8th grade that maybe aren't a part of the 7th grade standards? I promise you, they have things that they can give you and ideas to incorporate. It's just a great idea. You could also extend the learning from this year. So maybe you didn't go as in depth in a topic that you wanted to go in depth with because you were worried about time. And so that gives you an opportunity to, review and then extend on the learning. And I actually have an example for you with my choice boards. So I'm going to talk about extending the learning in a minute. And then you could even have your students create things for next year's students. So one of my favorite things to do is to allow my students to be the teacher and make it about topics that are super vague. So a great example would be lab safety. So you could have your 7th graders make a video, a rap, or a presentation about lab safety, or maybe it's about what to expect from Miss Thurston, or maybe they could teach their favorite topic they learned. It's really fun. The kids get super into it. I had a kid this year make a TikTok on lab safety, and it was hilarious. So just wanted to share those ideas. Back to the choice board. So this is a choice board that we created during digital learning last year. And we wanted to go further into genetics because we had time to cover it. And here are just some great examples of how you can give your students choice. You could edit this super easily by changing the topic. So like at the top, the very first box, it says create a comic strip about Gregor Mendel's life struggles and discoveries. And then I linked sources that they could use to create their comic strip. Instead of doing it on Gregor Mendel, you could do it on lab safety. Create a comic strip about lab safety. So like all of these boxes, you can edit the topic and just give your kids an opportunity to explore things towards the end of the year. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some STEM activities that you can end your year with that are super fun. You can also begin your school year with these activities. I'll talk about that later. So my favorite activity to do is a marshmallow shooter. And this is a great way to just review those science and engineering standards. This is actually a model that one of my students made, and it was genius. It was basically like a catapult, and it flung the marshmallow and it went really far. The best way that you could do this activity is to provide your students with a basket of random materials. And you can tell your kids that they don't have to use all of the materials. I gave my kids, when they were making this marshmallow shooter, I gave them like 15 different things, like a plate, a spoon, a fork, a straw. Like, think of just random stuff you have in your closet. And you'll notice like the student only used 3 different supplies: tape, a cup, and a balloon. So it's just a great idea for doing something engaging towards the end of the year. The key with designing things is giving them a time limit, or else you'll have kids that will be freaking out that they didn't get enough time and that it wasn't fair. So by setting a time limit, that's like crucial when you're doing those things. So 10-minute time on the clock, you got 10 minutes to create a device that flings the marshmallow as far as you can go. And then it's been beautiful. It's May. Take your kids outside and let them shoot their marshmallows. Or maybe you're going back to school in August and you need a first week activity. Here you go. Use one of these to get your students engaging with their peers. When I do this activity, you can have your kids make their own individually, or you could do this in pairs. It's just a really fun activity. Another fun activity to introduce the scientific method or to review the scientific method is the paper airplane challenge. And so when I do this in my class, I give every student 3 sheets of paper, and I tell them that they have to create 3 different paper airplanes and only changing 1 variable. So in my image, you can see that I've changed the weight. The shapes are all the same, but I changed the weight. And so the weight would be the paper clips. So the first airplane has 1 paper clip, the second airplane has 2, and the third airplane has 3. And once they're done building their paper airplanes and deciding what their variable is going to be, you can take them outside and test them. It's so fun. The kids get so into this. But the key is making sure that they do not throw their paper airplanes in the classroom, because you don't want to poke someone's eye out. Do it outside. And then there's just all different ways that you can change the variable. It doesn't have to be weight. It could be maybe they all make the same paper airplane, but they change the size of the wings. So this is a great way to go over variables with your kids and to review what variables are. I also have my kids collect data from their throws and create a graph based on their data. Just fun activities to still be teaching science, still incorporating those science engineering practices. I'm sure you have all heard of this one, but this is my kids, whenever I do this, this is their favorite activity we do. It's a great beginning of school year and end of school year activity. It's called the Spaghetti Tower Challenge. And the goal is to build the tallest freestanding tower that can hold a marshmallow. You tell your kids it's a large marshmallow and that it has to be at the top of the platform. Spaghetti is so cheap. You can get a box for like $1.99 at the store. And so I give my kids 20 spaghetti sticks, and I have them do this in groups. You could also have them do it in pairs. I've seen where you can include a yard of string. It's so funny what the kids come up with because of the piece of string. But you don't have to use a piece of string. You could just use the spaghetti and the tape. And then I have rules when I do this. I have learned over the years, after like doing it so many times, that my kids will always come up with different things that break the rules. And so each year, somehow I add a rule to the rules. So the biggest rule is you can't anchor your tower, which means you can't prop it up against anything. It has to be freestanding. The other rule that I've decided is, I had one kid one year, he like ate half his marshmallow. And I was like, you cheated. And he said, no, I didn't. The marshmallow's on the top. So the entire marshmallow must be on the top. You can't break your marshmallow. And then you can cut or break your supplies. If you don't tell your kids that, you're going to get asked 500 times if you can break the spaghetti. And then I always give a time limit once again, because kids will take all day if you don't give them a time limit. So 15 minutes. I got this idea from TED Ed. There's a great video about this challenge that CEOs have done across the world. And so I always do this activity, and then we end the last 15 minutes watching the TED Ed video, and it's super awesome. And so just check it out. This is just a really fun activity. It can just take 1 class period, or you can do it over 2 class periods. Like maybe they plan out their design, and then the following day that they're making their design. So just a fun activity. I think this is the last STEM challenge I have, and it's a water balloon catapult. You don't have to use water balloons, but at the end of the year in May, it is hot. And what better way to get your kids' engagement than saying, hey, we're going to use a water balloon at the end of this. This task takes multiple days, because building a catapult that can actually hold the weight of a water balloon takes time. And Elmer's glue doesn't always dry the fastest, but it holds really well. So I give my kids this challenge, and typically I'll print off this sheet of paper for them, and they have to create a prototype and sketch out designs. They have to include measurements in their sketch before I give them any materials. A lot of my students bring in their supplies from home because they get really invested in this because they want to shoot their water balloon really far. I also tell my kids to get their engagement even more is if they create a catapult that actually works, that at the end of the experiment, we can have a water balloon toss. So they just get really excited about that. Just another great idea for you to use towards the end of the year. This is the last one. Okay, this is my favorite activity that you can do in 5 minutes or you can do it in an hour. I love starting the school year off with this activity. It also always blows your kids' minds. So it's the paper tower challenge. And I have learned that my students only need 5 sheets of paper. If you Google this, it'll say 10 to 15. No, it works with 5 and their minds will be blown. Do not give them an example. If you give them an example, they're just going to copy exactly what they see on the screen. So instead, you just give them protocols. So like you must use at least, you don't have to use everything, but it must be 2 inches tall. And the reason that I say that is because in the past, I've had kids stack all 5 of their sheets of paper on top of each other, and then they put the books on top of it, and they think they've created a tower. Well, no, that doesn't count. But try to give them, try not to like help them, try to just like let their imagination flow. You'll have some kids that go immediately to bridges. Bridges have triangles in them. So a lot of kids will start trying to make triangular shapes that can hold a textbook up. I give them paper. I give them a yard of tape. If they decide they want to start over, they can. They have to throw their paper away, and I have to see them throw it away so that I know that no one's cheating. And I give every group 1 book to practice with. And then at the end, when the timer goes off, I walk around with this giant cart of books and we count out loud, and the kids go nuts. Like they're going to be so loud. Oh, they're going to be really excited. So yeah, you should this is a great way to get to know students and to collaborate with kids. I said I was done. I'm not done. I have more ideas. Okay, so another one is Saving Sam. This is a great like 2-minute activity. It's not going to take them very long. But here is the paragraph that I always give my kids on the board. And I say, Sam is stuck on a boat. And how he got there is not important, but Sam can't swim and the boat is capsized. To get to shore, Sam needs to retrieve a life jacket from underneath the boat so that he can float to shore. The goal or the rules: Sam cannot touch the water. Sam cannot touch your hands. So the kids have to figure out how to get Sam off of the boat and without touching the water and without their hands touching Sam. The other cool things too is that the students can't touch the Petri dish. In this image, you see a cup. And your students cannot touch the life vest. So I put this on the screen, I make it really big, and I give my kids 5 minutes to see if they can do it. They will do it in like 1 minute. It's really not that hard, but it's a great way to collaborate with a group of students you don't know and to get to know kids. And it's a really fast activity. So this is a great beginning of the year activity. A couple more ideas: Scrabble word groups. So I have a ton of random Scrabble pieces, and I make my kids come up with as many words as they can with their Scrabble pieces. And so this could be previewing content or it could be reviewing content. It's a great thing to do after you've taught like a standard. Tell me everything you know about biomes, go. And they have to create all the words that they can. Another sim activity is floating boats. And that is a engineering design process where they create a boat that can hold pennies, and you see how many pennies the boat can hold. If you Google that one, you'll find tons of ideas. And then the paper towel challenge, that's great for learning and reviewing scientific processing skills. So your goal is for your students to have a paper towel and to see, like I'll have 4 different brands of paper towels, and they have to see which one can hold the most water, like which one's the most absorbent. So that's really fun. And then I have my students create a data table for that. just some great activities to do at the beginning or the end of the year. End of year reflecting. I love this. So my favorite is a time capsule. I've never done this. We wanted to last year and then COVID happened. But you can totally create a time capsule that your students do, and they put maybe like a letter or an object that is about a topic that they learned that was their favorite to learn. You could do this in the digital form, or you can dig a real life hole. We were going to dig a real life hole last year, and then we decided to do like a digital one. They weren't as excited about the digital time capsule, but it's always a great idea if you're not wanting to go outside and dig a hole. I also love when my students reflect and they send their future selves an email. There's a great website for this. It's called futureme.org. And I always try to link it to biology because they'll take biology in high school typically. And what we teach is a life science reflects almost perfectly with bio. So I always have them email themselves a goal for high school and then remind themselves maybe of certain topics that they learned that they're scared that they may forget, anything important that they may want to remember from life science. So that's really fun. And you can schedule it out for 1 year future self or 2 years. It's really cool. My favorite thing to do, we do this at Christmas time. You could do it at the end of the year like we did, but it's a meme creator. And you can have your students create memes using Google Drawings. Google Drawings is super easy. And they can create a meme that maybe is about life science or a topic that they learned. The key to this one is modeling what you're looking for. So super important. Okay, beginning of the year. You can use almost all of the activities I just shared at the start of the year. They are all fantastic for getting to know your students. You can still teach your classroom protocols through those kinds of activities that I shared about. And you can gain student buy-in on the first day of school because of the activities that you're doing. Relationships are everything, and I'm going to talk more about that in a second. So first week of school, I know that it's like in 2 months. Just go with me here. I just wanted to put it on your brain so that you can be thinking about next year, because I did share a ton of great activities. My thoughts on a syllabus. We all have them. We probably all give them. I do not give it on the first day of school. I know that may sound crazy, but I don't. Instead, I make sure I know every kid's name, and I teach a ton of kids. I probably have 32 kids in each class, and I teach 4 different classes of kids. So a ton of kids. And I try my hardest to memorize every kid's name when they leave my door on the first day of school. I know that sounds crazy, but you get student buy-in immediately on day 2 if you know your kids. The best way that you can do this is through the name game. You've probably all heard of it. I will usually create a giant circle in my classroom, and I have my students say their name and one describing word. So example, I would be terrific Thurston, and then you build upon it. So pretend that you're in my room and we have a circle of students. I would say my name, terrific Thurston, and we'll pretend that Billy's sitting next to me. Billy would say, hi, I'm Bossy Billy, and this is terrific Thurston. And then you would do the third person. Let's pretend it's Alicia. So Alicia would say, I'm awesome Alicia. This is Bossy Billy. I think I used Billy as the example name. I don't remember. And then I would be terrific Thurston. And so the goal is for every student to remember every kid's name, and for you to have ways to remember every kid's name. It works, I promise. When it's in real life, it works. And I typically will save my syllabus for really like 3 or 4 days in. I just want to spend time getting to know my kids, because relationships are everything. A couple of ways that I do that the first week of school, human bingo is my favorite. I do this on the first day. I have a bingo card that I've created, and I make my students walk around the room, and every kid in the classroom has to sign every person's bingo card. It's really awesome because you get to know, the peers get to know each other, and I get to know my students. You can also send your kids on a scavenger hunt. You can create those using QR codes. You could also do that through Google Form. There's just one that I've done in the past. Take the time, spend it building positive culture. It's never wasted. It's always time invested. So I know I'm wrapping up and the school year is over, but there's one thing that I wanted to share. So in 8th grade, this is only my second year teaching 8th grade science. It's only my second year giving the EOC. Last year we didn't get to give it. And so I was really nervous about that. I was really nervous what my scores were going to look like. And I taught some really tough kids this year. The coolest part is my scores were really good this year. And I think it's because of the relationships I built. When you can level with your kids and you can get them to buy in, they will do whatever they can for you. I took a whole lot of time at the end of the year tutoring kids, and I think it paid off because they knew that I was invested in them. And when you invest in your kids, they will go the extra mile to learn what they can. It's just super cool to see what they can do. But take the time to invest. It's not wasted. Build that positive culture. Get to know your kids. Okay, I'm off my rant. Thank you so much. I hope that if you're still in school, that your school year goes well. If you're done, enjoy your summer. I'd love to hear any STEM ideas that you have that you want to share. And if you've got them, shoot me an email. And that's it. Y'all have a great summer. Bye.